start this video off, we will provide you with different scenarios as part of an activity where you are to pinpoint the errors made throughout each scene. The following video is a guide to prepare and deliver oral presentations in using visual aids. Summarization of main points. Presentation should summarize briefly the main points of your work. Keep your presentation simple. Eye contact. Maintaining eye contact with the audience is important. It adds a level of intimacy and comfort to the presentation. Ensure your presentation is properly addressed and tailored to your target audience. Less is more. The main message can be lost when the presenter is trying to say too much. Your knowledge on the subject is better expressed through a clear and concise presentation that can lead to a dialogue exchange with your audience and enabling them to become active participants. Be logical. Think of the presentation as a story. It must have a logical flow, a clear beginning, middle, and end. You set the stage, the beginning, you tell the story, the middle, and you have a big finish, the end. Practice and time your presentation. It is important to stick to what you practice, as it is quite common to deviate. The more you practice, the easier it is for you to stay focused on the message you're trying to communicate to your audience, and the easier it is to stay to the allotted time frame. Use visual aids sparingly but effectively. Presenters have different styles of presenting. In the same way, the audience has different ways of grasping the message. It is very rare to captivate your audience without the use of any visuals. Visuals help to better emphasize and get the message across. Using too many visuals can cause you to run over time on your presentation. Avoid reading the visual unless you wish to emphasize the point explicitly. The audience can read too. The visual should support what you are saying, either for emphasis or with data to prove the verbal point. Finally, do not overload the visual. Make the points few and clear. To recap, don't put your presentation together at the last minute. The evening before is a time to practice your delivery and ensure the timing is right, and is not a time to get your ideas together. An even pace is important. You should practice beforehand against the watch and make certain to not exceed the allotted time. Leave time for discussion. To exceed your time is unfair on the following presenters and to the chair of the session, who will be obliged to halt your presentation. Keep your introduction to a minimum, just enough to set the scene. Many speakers waste time on the introduction and end up rushing through the rest of the delivery, and particularly the important conclusions. Keep your delivery even and deliberate. Do not try to cover more ground by speaking rapidly. If you have a few pictures, these can be displayed quite quickly, but keep them on the screen for a minimum of 5 seconds each. Speak up and do not let your voice fall off at the end of sentences. Above all, let your enthusiasm for your subject show through. In this way, defects in the delivery are readily overlooked. Be animated in your delivery, but don't fidget. Avoid repeating unnecessary pause-filling words such as right, okay, etc. Dealing with questions may be difficult, although they are generally few. If you feel you have already covered a particular issue, A question may imply that you were not completely clear in the first place. Feel free to ask someone in the audience with more expertise to answer a difficult question, or just admit that you don't know. It's not an examination. A thank you for your attention is a nice touch at the end of the acknowledgements. So, why should you use visual aids? Preparation for your presentation should involve design of any visual aids which help your audience to understand what you are saying. Images and diagrams can convey messages and information which, if spoken, would take longer to explain and be harder to digest. However, don't assume that you can flash up a diagram and the audience will immediately understand what it means. They need time and clear explanations to make sense of your material. Visual stimuli, combined with your oral delivery, also make the presentation more memorable. They are also a good way of maintaining your audience's interest and attention. Make sure they support and complement what you are saying, not directly repeat, contradict, or distract from your speech. Types of visual aid: posters, whiteboard, flip chart, overhead projector, PowerPoint, video, props, and handouts. It is important to take into consideration the type of visual aid that will better help you to communicate your presentation more effectively. Tips on preparing visual aids. Each element on the visual aid must be simple. Visuals should be brief, as cluttering your presentation with too many images or messages can confuse your audience and diminish the potential impact of your visual message. Keep the number of words on a slide to the absolute minimum required to get your point across. Do not put in huge paragraphs of text. Determine the difference between what you will say and what the visual aid will show. Do not read straight from your visuals. Likewise, ask the audience to read or listen, not both. Visual aids should not provide reading material while you talk. Rather, use them to illustrate or highlight your points. Use charts and graphs to support the presentation of numerical information. Develop sketches and drawings to convey various designs and plans. When preparing graphics, make sure they are not too crowded in detail. Do not overuse color. See that line detail, letters, and symbols are bold enough to be seen from the back of the room. The minimum point size should be 18. Don't expect your listeners to read smaller text from the back of the room. Do not use visual aids for persuasive statements, qualifying remarks, emotional appeals, or any type of rhetorical statement. If you have handouts, don't let them become a distraction during the presentation. They should provide reinforcement following your address. Consider giving them out after the presentation, unless the audience will use them during the presentation or will need to review them in advance of the presentation. Practice presenting the full program using graphic materials so you are familiar with their use and order. If you use audio-visual materials, practice working with them and the equipment to get the timing down right. Seek feedback on the clarity of your visuals and do so early enough to allow yourself time to make needed adjustments. Do's and don'ts of using visual aids. Do's. Be sure to interact with the information on your visual aids by pointing to specific points or parts of the diagrams. This helps the audience to make links between your speech and detail on the visual aids. Ensure all details are visible from the back of the room. Don'ts. Be careful not to stand in front and obscure the view of your audience. Avoid reading from the large projector screen, as this means you turn your back to the audience, obscuring eye contact and reducing projection of your voice. If you need to read directly from the text, look at the PC or laptop screen. Don't use bright colors. Visual aids are enhancements to a presentation that can engage the audience, provide additional information, and reinforce key points. Visual aids can help you to reach your objectives by providing emphasis to whatever is being said. They involve your audience and require a change from one activity to another, from hearing to seeing. With pictures, the concepts or ideas that you present are no longer simply words, but words plus images. If the audience doesn't clearly grasp the spoken word, a visual may help them to better absorb information. So now that you've pinpointed the errors, let us show you the proper way to conduct an oral presentation with the use of visual aids. Thank you for your